In a small, close-knit village in Nigeria, lived a woman named Nkechi, a widow who worked hard to provide for her 3 daughters, Amora, Ifunanya, and Chisom. Her girls were the light of her life, but society's whispers began to weigh her down. In the village, having a son to carry on the family name was seen as the ultimate blessing, a measure of a woman's worth. Despite her love for her daughters, Nkechi couldn't silence the voices, both inside and around her, that told her she wasn't complete. Nkechi tried to ignore the gnawing ache of longing, but it grew each time she heard her neighbors talking about her unfortunate situation or watched families with sons being celebrated and honored. Her late husband's family, though kind, subtly reminded her of her failure to bear a son. She brushed it off, telling herself that her daughters were enough, but deep down, she began to feel that they could never fulfill her longing. One day, at the bustling village market, Nkechi met a man named Okachukwu. Handsome, confident, and full of charm, he immediately took an interest in her. After hearing of her plight, he whispered promises of a better life, one where he would cherish her and give her the son she longed for. His words stirred something within her, a hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Here was a man who seemed to understand her pain, who made her believe that life could offer her more. After much internal conflict, Nkechi convinced herself that the only way to find happiness was to leave her daughters and start afresh with Okachukwu. She told herself that her girls would be fine, they were resilient, and Amora, her eldest, was responsible enough to care for her younger sisters. And so, one quiet evening, she gathered her daughters around her. "My children," she began, her voice shaky, "I need to speak with you." Amora, sensing her mother's discomfort, asked gently, "Mama, what is it? Why do you look so sad?" Nkechi took a deep breath, her heart pounding. I need to go away for a while. I am leaving." Her words fell heavily in the room, like stones in still water. The girls sat in stunned silence before Ifunanya, the middle child, cried, "Why, Mama? Don't you love us anymore?" Nkechi's chest tightened. She wanted to say she did, that she loved them more than anything, but the dream of a son burned inside her like a fever. "This is something I must do," she managed, forcing her voice to remain steady. As her daughters wept and pleaded with her to stay, she hardened her heart, promising herself that they would be better off, that her absence would give them a chance at a life without her shame hanging over them. Okachukwu took Nkechi to his home, and they were soon married. For a while, she was hopeful, imagining the joy of holding a son in her arms. She sent money back to her daughters, but the letters stopped quickly, and her visits home grew less frequent. She focused entirely on her new life, clinging to the promise of the son she'd sacrificed everything for. But after several months, Nkechi found herself holding a baby girl. She named her Nena and tried to love her, but every glance at her daughter's face reminded her of her failure. Worse, Okachukwu's demeanor shifted. He became cold, distant, and resentful, blaming her for not fulfilling his promise of a son. He ignored Nena, refused to hold her, and spoke only to scold or accuse Nkechi. When Nkechi bore another girl the following year, Okachukwu's anger turned to rage. He began to call her names, belittling her, and in his drunken fits, he would often curse her daughters, saying they had brought nothing but misfortune. One night, after a particularly violent argument, Okachukwu declared, "I should never have married a woman who could only bring me daughters. You're worthless, just like those girls you abandoned." In that moment, the weight of Nkechi's choices hit her like a wave. She realized the terrible price she'd paid for a dream that had brought her nothing but heartbreak. Her mind raced back to her 3 daughters Amora, Ifunanya, and Chisom faces she hadn't seen in years. The warmth of their hugs, their laughter, their cries for her to stay echoed in her mind. For the first time in years, she let herself cry, overwhelmed with regret and sorrow. With nothing left, Nkechi decided to return to her village, praying that her daughters might find it in their hearts to forgive her. Her heart pounded with anxiety as she made the journey, imagining how they would look, how they would respond. She feared they might turn her away, and perhaps that would be fair. But she had to try. When she reached the village, Nkechi found her old home well kept, surrounded by laughter. Amora, now grown and graceful, was tending to the garden, and her two younger sisters were busy with chores, laughing and chatting with a warmth that was unmistakable. Nkechi's heart ached to see them so independent, so happy without her. As she took a tentative step forward, Amora noticed her. She stopped, her eyes widening with shock and confusion. Nkechi felt the shame rise up again, and she fell to her knees, sobbing, "My children, I am so sorry. I was a fool. Please, please forgive me." Amora and her sister stood there, silent, for a moment that stretched into eternity. Finally, Amora approached her mother, her eyes wet with unshed tears. She knelt down, pulling Nkechi into a tender embrace. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking, "we never stopped loving you." One by one, Ifunanya and Chisom joined them, wrapping their arms around their mother, sharing the love and forgiveness that Nkechi thought she no longer deserved. In that moment, Nkechi realized that family was not defined by a name or a legacy but by the love and forgiveness shared among them. She had learned her lesson too late, but the kindness of her daughters showed her that even in the face of her greatest mistakes, love could still prevail. Voiceover ****. Nkechi learned that love is not measured by the gender of a child but by the bonds that hold a family together. It took losing everything for her to see what she truly had all along. This story speaks to the power of forgiveness and the dangers of societal expectations, leaving viewers with a heartwarming and thought-provoking reminder of the value of family and unconditional love.